Call to order the Wyoming Valley West School District regular May meeting, Wednesday, May 13th at 7:08 PM. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Is he on Zoom, Anthony?
Here. Here,
Mr.
can you hear me?
Dabaskis?
Here.
Mr. Bellio,
Here.
Mr. Nicholson,
Here.
Ms. Levesque,
Here.
Mr. Perfetto,
Here.
Mr. Kubuski,
Here.
Mrs. Cassatt,
Here.
Mr. Camus,
Here.
Mr. Wilson,
Quorum. A moment of silence followed by the salute to our flag, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, not good. Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, might as well.
Should be able. Might get it.
I'd like to announce there was an executive session held prior to this meeting to discuss our teacher's contract and a vendor contract. Student representatives Emily Bolin and Riley Castro.
Emily Carr, Kenneth Craig, Devontae Rivers, and Kieran Scalzo were selected by faculty as seniors of the month for the month of May. The students were honored at lunch with a faculty guest of their choosing. They received a certificate from administration, and their photograph will be featured in the local newspapers and on the high school webpage. Congratulations, seniors.
The high school musical department is hosting Spartan Arts Festival at the high school on Sunday, May 17th from 1:30 to 7 p.m. There will be music from 1:30 to 7 in various venues throughout our building, as well as displays by our visual arts department and the distribution of our interim literary arts magazine. The schedule is as follows: 1:30 concert band in the auditorium, 2:45 concert choir in the gymnasium, 3:30 orchestra and chamber orchestra on stage, 5 p.m. jazz band on the concourse, 6:30 full choir in the gymnasium. From 2 to 7, the interim magazine will be in the cafeteria, along with visual arts in the main lobby and food trucks at the flagpole. The event is rain or shine, free to the public. Thank you to all of your support of the arts throughout the year, and we hope to see you then.
Parents of seniors and seniors, we need your photo for senior reflection. Either direct message your photos on Instagram or email your photos to Ms. Topin. Pictures can be from elementary school, middle school, and high school. Group pictures are needed. Be sure to include your message, who is in each photo. Pictures are due by 2:00 p.m. on Monday, May 18th. Please be sure to follow the Class of 2026 Instagram account and Facebook page for updates on senior reflection. Thank you for helping make our senior reflection ceremony a success.
On Thursday, May 20th, senior students will be participating in Adopt a Highway in Plymouth under the supervision of their advisor, Mrs. Bennett.
On Tuesday, May 26th, the high school participate in a club day.
Wednesday, May 27th is the Spring Sports Award Ceremony at 6 p.m. in the high school auditorium.
On Saturday, June 6th, the high school is hosting the SATs.
And senior student activities for the remainder of the school year are: on Thursday, May 28th at 7 p.m., the Senior Awards Ceremony will be in the high school auditorium. Tuesday, June 2nd is the Senior Tea at noon on the high school concourse. Thursday, June 4th is the Senior Cookout. Friday, June 5th is the Senior Trip. Monday, June 8th is Senior Reflection at 3 p.m. in the high school auditorium. Tuesday, June 9th is the Senior Class Picture at Spartan Stadium. Wednesday, June 10th is graduation practice at Spartan Stadium. And Thursday, June 11th is the graduation ceremony at Spartan Stadium at 6 p.m. Thank you so much.
Thank you both very much. Supan?
Yeah, I would like to recognize our student council senior liaison, Emily Bolin, by adding a leaf to the dedication tree located in the West Wing STEM lab at the high school. Emily's commitment leadership and service to the student council have made a positive impact on our school community, and this recognition is a meaningful way to honor her contributions. So thank you, Emily.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
ISTS presentation, the feasibility study? All right, oh, I'm sorry. Who's FSL? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Good evening. My name is Ryan Hottenstein with FSL Public Finance. I'm here to talk to you tonight about your current portfolio and also some future impacts based on the potential needs the district is looking at in regards to its capital plan. With me as part of the financing team is Tim Kerr from PNC Bank. PNC Bank has worked with the district for more than 2 decades as its underwriter in securing funds necessary to do the capital projects throughout the district. As we get started, I do have handouts in front of you that you can follow along if you can't see the screens. Just wanted to take a look and say, hey, look, before we look at anything, first thing we want to evaluate is where is the district, what's its current debt service, and what is the annual impact on its budget. Right now, outstanding for the district are 6 different series of bonds. Those bonds have a total outstanding annual payment amount of right around $1.8 million. The district pays on a net basis about $1.8 million annually on its debt service every year through about 2034, where it drops by about $400,000 for about $1.4 million a year. And then it drops again 4 years later or 3 years later in 2037, where it finally matures in 2041. So that's where all the debt is paid off of the district, and it's structured so that it descends over time. When we take a look at the debt service for school districts and municipalities throughout the state, the one thing that's required under state regulations is that in total, your debt service needs to be level or descending. So when you take a look, your portfolio matches that requirement, but you aren't allowed to borrow and then structure your new debt so that your debt service is increasing. When you look at it, it has to be either level in aggregate or descending. So when we go ahead and we take a look at some different options as we move forward, we always want to keep that in mind. Now, I know the district is looking at a number of significant capital improvements over the next number of years that is looking to invest. So what we put together here is 3 different scenarios just at $50 increases of amounts. So we've got $150 million, $200 million, and $250 million. And for all 3 of those different scenarios, we structured this into 4 different borrowings. The first one, we structured and assumed that you would do a small $10 million borrowing in the fiscal year, not your fiscal year, but calendar year 2026 of $10 million, and then 3 additional tranches every single year from 27, 28, and 29. We are using current market rates as of the beginning of the week. Rates have ticked up a little bit over the last 3 days. But also when we take a look at the impact, we want to acknowledge that right now for the district, 1 mil of taxes brings in about $1.6 million of revenue a year for the district. So this first scenario of $150 million, you can look at column 1. It has your fiscal year ending June 30th. Then column 2 shows what your current net debt service is. And then we've structured the next 4 borrowings to achieve a level or a level aggregate debt service as it moves forward. So you can see that you have the 4 different borrowings in columns 3, 4, 5, and 6. And in column 7, it shows what that new debt service would look like if you needed or decided to borrow $150 million for these large capital projects of the district. The last column, column 8, then equates that into what the millage impact would look like. So if you borrowed the $10 million in 2026 and you wanted to have another $50 million basically project deposit of $46 million in 27, another one in 28, and then a third and final one in 29, you're now that it would go up to about $2 million, a millage impact of 0.3 mils. Then it would grow go up to about 3.6 million, 6 million, 8.7 million, and then level off at about really $11 million, $10.8 million a year out through 2056. That total millage impact over that time is about 5.4 mils. Looking at the $200 million, same structure, same sort of impact, growing and ultimately leveling out at about 13.4, really 13.5 mils for a total millage impact. 13.5 million for a total millage impact of about 7 mils. And then lastly, that $250 million number, you'd be looking at debt service growing as high as 17 million. Now, that's just what those numbers would cost. We're not recommending borrowing any of those. It's just to give you an idea of what that type of impact is. The one thing that we have to consider as well is you may want to borrow a certain amount of money. However, the state does regulate how much you are able to borrow when it takes a look at a non-electoral amount. So there's two different evaluations. When you look at non-electoral debt, the state requires that you stay within your borrowing base, what they refer to as your borrowing base. What the borrowing base is a calculation based on your average net revenues, and it's over a 3-year period. So just taking a look at this roughly from what you're budgeted in 2024, 25, and 26, we take a look at your total governmental revenues for those years. We back out anything that is one time or being reimbursed from the state for the Plan Con, for example, that you currently have. We come to with your total deductions, get your total revenues. And when you look at that right now, you can see that your borrowing base average net revenues is about 98 million a year. We then take that number, multiply it by 2.25, which is the state's limit, and then back out any existing debt. So the debt that we talked about earlier is about $20 million in principal. Your borrowing base is 220 million. We back out that 20 million, that leaves you a capacity of 200 million. So unless you were to look at electoral debt, the capacity to go above 200, that's the current limit. So if there's larger projects, bigger amounts, you will have to look at possibly looking at electoral debt in order to occur anything above that limit. But that's where we stand right now. Those are kind of the impacts of what those different levels would be. And happy to answer and address any questions that you may have as we move forward into the rest of the presentation on the capital needs throughout the district based on that needs assessment.
Does anybody have anything? Anyone? Thank you, Ryan, very much.
The only thing I would add is we get this question a lot as it relates to this structure is very, it's replicated a lot across the state. A lot of districts are building new schools. And one question we get a lot is, well, why don't we just borrow all the money all at once? Why do we have to phase this in? Why do we have to do multiple series? And that's because of a rule by the state called Act 1, where you're only allowed to put in place or raise mills to a certain level each year. So based on the Act 1 index, it's called, you can only raise the mills per a certain amount every year. So that's why a lot of these structures, unless again, of course, unless you go to electoral debt, a lot of these structures show that sort of phased in millage impact over the course of several years until you hit your ultimate run rate of, whatever it was, between 10 and 17 million. So just something to keep in the back of your mind as well.
That does remind me of a very good point that Tim brings up. Because of that Act 1 limit and your ability to only raise to the index, when you are looking at these large projects, these are the type of things that you need to be planning ahead for. So even though you may not need that capacity or that debt millage now, it's usually beneficial to raise that millage early and often so that you have that longer capacity in the future. So if you're looking at projects like that, starting early, raising those taxes to build the capacity necessary to increase them is something that districts should be looking at as they're moving forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Let me switch over to ours. Great. Thanks for having us here again. We were here in April with a meaningful update on this feasibility study. We'll give some more information today. My name is Tim Guider. I'm here with Mike Lang from ICS, Cody West, he's back here from ICS, and then we have James Margada, Shel Mazingo from Alloy 5 Architects as part of the team as well. Here's the agenda for today. So we really want to start with kind of a summary of all the information that was presented back in April, just as a reminder, all the takeaways that came from that update. And then through this presentation, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into each of the buildings. We'll show some photos of what we found and get a little bit more granular with some of the information on a building by building basis. We'll also talk about the educational program that you have currently at the elementary school, middle school, and high school levels, and we'll do a little bit of a comparison there. And then we're going to review some possible approaches to address some of the issues that we found, and could take to address some of the needs that we found here. And then really the process that we recommend to continue engaging stakeholders and also further develop these approaches and really help the district and the board make an informed decision by the end of this whole planning process. So for the last 5 or so months, our team has been working together with the administration to, evaluate all the facility needs, the capacity needs, and the educational goals, define the educational goals for the district. And we evaluated, all the information that we presented in April. Some of the takeaways are, evaluating all the building systems on an HVAC level, electrical, plumbing, building envelope. There's significant need across the district. And we'll dive into that a little bit more today. And then also based on the demographic study that was completed, enrollment is continuing to increase over the next 5 to 10 years. And that feeds into some of the capacity concerns that we have with the buildings and the number of students that you have. And then as far as the educational programming goes right now, there's definitely some smaller spaces within the district than ideal. And it's limiting the flexibility that you have in the program. And also some of the classrooms obviously just could be modernized in general as some of the needs that we found. So as we continue to work with the district and you folks on the planning process, we want to highlight the mission and vision statements of the district. So, these are shown here, and they center on, providing, high quality education to all students, promoting academic success and career readiness. So we'll continue to use these to guide some of the decisions that we make, together in the process as we go. So this slide and this table really provide a quick overview of the portfolio of buildings that you have within the district. So you can see the grades that are served by building. You can also see the square footage and the original construction year, followed by the last year of a major renovation in those buildings. So, to note, some of the buildings were originally constructed in the early 1900s. And, with the exception of State Street, most have not been renovated since the 1970s. So the district in total owns just over 698,000 square feet. And the current building replacement cost for that square footage is about $335 million. There's when we start racking and stacking the buildings, we use what's called a facility condition index, and we'll go into that in a couple of slides, but we'll use that current replacement value as a basis for that comparison. There's also a couple third parties out there that make recommendations on a percentage basis of what you should ideally put aside in terms of maintenance each year based on that current replacement value. So Association of Physical Plant Administrators, or APA, They recommend 1.5% to 3% of that value. For your district, that would be $5 million to $10 million a year to keep the buildings maintained and ongoing on an ongoing basis. National Academy of Sciences, they recommend between 2% and 4%. But that gives you a feel for what would have to be budgeted to continually maintain your systems that you have and the buildings that you have. Here's another way to look at the buildings and the number of years since the major renovation. So, generally these renovations should be kind of considered or in the planning phase in that 20 to 25 or 30-year time frame. It's because all of your building systems typically are going to need to be replaced in that 15, 20, 25 year, and some might extend longer. But you kind of want to start planning for renovations in that time period and then be implementing those renovations in that 30 to 35 year time frame. So that's in the ideal scenario. You could see a lot of these buildings haven't been renovated for far past that. With a few that jump out, in particular, Chester and Third Ave, for example. So I talked about the facility condition indexing. So this is a little bit of a definition here, but it's a way for us to compare the buildings in a measurable format. So we take all of that deferred maintenance that we've identified through these facility assessments, and then also what will be expected to be spent over the next 10 years in the building. And we divide that by the current replacement value. And that gives you a percentage of maintenance versus the cost to replace the building. And then you could see there's a scale that's used. A building that's in excellent condition would be 0 to 10%, fair condition 10 to 30%, poor 30 to 60, and then critical would be 60% plus. Again, this gives us a way to kind of rack and stack and look at your portfolio of buildings and help prioritize the buildings and the needs. So here are the values that we have right now for each of the buildings. You can see Chester, Dana, and the high school are exceeding 60% currently, while most of the other buildings fall in that poor category. Generally, buildings that exceed 60%, we would recommend kind of taking a hard look at those buildings and just determining whether it makes sense. Is it a good candidate for renovation, or is replacement of those buildings a better scenario? And a lot of that, there's a lot of factors that go into it. It's not just the needs that are identified there. It's also enrollment and capacity and any inherent deficiencies that you might have in the building you can't address with a renovation. And we'll be going into that a lot more in the next few months as we work through these different approaches that we're gonna outline here. So back in April, we went through these building report cards. If you remember, we're not going to go through all those again here. They're here for reference, and obviously everything that we presented back in April. What we're going to do is dive in a little bit deeper in each of the buildings with some photos and some highlights of those buildings. We'll have James and Cody come up here, and they'll kind of walk through some of the building systems on a building by building basis.
Good evening, James Margata with Alloy 5 and Cody West with ICS. We were part of the boots on the ground team that walked all your buildings in February, and we were also here last month to give this presentation. So as Tim mentioned, we did expand a little bit on the report cards. So we wanted to show a little bit more of a visual and highlight the top pieces for each of your buildings. So at the high school, the facility needs are high at the high school, what we're calling the highest. The high school is a unique construction around the 70s. You all know we've been in the space before. The exterior building envelope, kind of unique to this area. ADA for the building also. ADA or handicapped accessibility really came online in the early 90s. So any buildings kind of built prior to that period have to be retrofitted to accomplish ADA. So you'll see, across the older buildings, that's a big piece of what's recommended or targeted. Outside of that, Cody could talk a little bit about the systems.
Sounds good. Yeah, so like James mentioned, a building like this, the recommendation would be,
Into the microphone. I'm
the
sorry.
recommendation would be a major renovation
Yeah.
at a school, built in the seventies with the need that the high school has. So you saw the report cards, last month. And so what we wanted to do, this evening is kind of provide a little bit more detail, using this similar format where we have, the 6 categories from those report cards. And if you notice at the bottom, we're using that same color coding, sort of, graphic to show, needs, right? Or not just needs, but systems that have been replaced recently that, don't need to be replaced, soon. So you see at the high school here, there's a lot of orange, some red, and yellow. James mentioned the building envelope, right? This building is, very, unique construction and, has a lot of windows. The curtain wall system has needs. The, wall system is a, insulated panel, system, so it's not easily, retrofitted. And it also has needs, along with all the rest of the major systems that were installed in the late 70s.
The middle school, so talked a lot about the middle school. One of the bigger things at the middle school is in the envelope are the windows. So there are multiple different sizes of windows, and many of them have been replaced or retrofitted, but there's still a good amount that don't necessarily shut, and the hardware has corroded away. The lavatories at the middle school and the stairways, also at the middle school, there's a few site conditions. The window wells around the perimeter that lead down to the lower level have severe, kind of repairs needed to stop water from getting into that lower level. So we're, outside of that, there was a pretty fairly recent investment. You'll see some greens at the middle school for the HVAC systems, which we shared last time.
Yeah, I could jump in here. So, yeah, again, so the recommendation here is just targeted improvements, right? There's been a lot of investment, recent investment at the middle school. So there's not as much need here as, say, the high school or some of the other buildings. You can see here that the HVAC systems were recently replaced. Along with that was new electric service, all sorts of infrastructure. But there is some, legacy equipment and systems within the building that need to be addressed over the next 10 years.
Chester Street Elementary, one of your century-old buildings. I believe it was built in the early 1920s. Facility needs, we're saying, are high there. Big concern here is the ADA accessibility, with the bathrooms being on the lower level and really no way for handicap to get up and down throughout the 3 levels of the school. Another big thing was the classrooms seem to, be at capacity and have grown out into the hallway. There's some targeted major upgrade renovations here, definitely including ADA code upgrades.
Thanks, James. Yeah, I think ADA is a big one at this school. Just buildings were built differently, 140 years ago or so, 100 years ago. But you can see a lot of orange and red that are shown within the building. I would point out, the boiler plant here was replaced about 12 years ago. So that's, has a life left in it. The plant, though, only has 1 boiler, so there's not as much redundancy as the other buildings in the district. So if that boiler goes down, we don't have heat. It's also worth pointing out this is the first school in the list that doesn't have air conditioning. So you'll see that as we move through. There are buildings that are air conditioned, there are buildings that are not.
Dana Street, similar issues, similar construction years. Facility needs are high at Dana. You'll see a lot more cosmetics here. You'll see a lot of ceiling patches, the pictures are shown here to, exemplify that. Another big thing at Dana are the exposed radiators and the heating systems. There's been a little bit of retrofitting for ADA here, but still would be, a need for a major upgrade to make it code compliant.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention this from the previous building, but at Chester, similar to the high school, this would be something that, major renovations would be recommended. Similar at Dana, this building would need major renovations to get to the level of, current educational delivery. ADA, building systems, heating, cooling, plumbing, generally need to be upgraded. Again, more orange and red at Dana, and yeah, I can't help myself. So here in the mechanical column, shown in red is actually the original house fans that provide ventilation to the building. Something that you don't see anymore and really haven't seen for, I don't know, 80 plus years. Personally, I think it's really cool, but, we're not providing cooling. We're just moving air through the building. Back when, oil was a nickel or whatever a gallon.
So turning to State Street, as Tim mentioned earlier, this is the facility that's been most recently invested in at a larger scale. So State Street's pretty good. You'll see more greens and yellows here. We're calling this kind of maintenance mode for this. There's pieces of this that within the next 10 years we need to start watching and keeping up with, because that 20-year time frame for parts, 20 to 30 years. It's been about 15 years since that renovation. So you'll see a lot more greens and lighter greens and yellows here.
Yeah, that's right. So 2011 doesn't seem like that long ago, but it has been 15 years. So a lot of the systems that were new when the building was added onto and renovated are going to come to the end of their life over the next 10 years. But generally, this building's in, the best shape. And, maintenance mode, basically planned, scheduled replacements rather than replacing systems as they fail, is going to be a huge benefit to the district over the next 10 years.
So Third Ave is not quite as old as some of the other elementary schools, construction in the 50s. So although it is, I guess that's about 75 years ago, Third Ave is very well maintained, and a lot of the finishes are original and they're all functioning fairly well. So at this time, we're kind of saying some targeted improvements for things like HVAC. This one had some additionally, or also had renovations for handicap. There's handicap ramps, and it's all on one story, so it's a little less problematic to get up and down at Third Ave.
Yeah, I think for this building, I would want to make a shout out to Mr. Cordis and his team. Just this is a perfect example of a building that is in good condition, even though it's 70 plus years old at this point. It's got original unit ventilators in the classrooms, a lot of basically all original piping, and they've been able to keep the thing going. So again, this isn't quite in maintenance mode, but some targeted system replacements should go a long way here.
Moving to your support building, so the central office, not designed as an admin building, neighborhood school. So that kind of like retrofit, is fine. But another big thing here is the ADA accessibility. Don't believe, there's no the street, access off the street is one step up. And again, restrooms on the lower level, kind of moving through the floors. So the biggest thing here is that it wasn't originally designed to be an admin space. It was an elementary, a neighborhood school. So to meet more programmatic needs, would really suit, for admin space to be elsewhere.
Yeah, I think for the remainder of the buildings, we've just got one slide here. So yeah, just to kind of piggyback on what James was saying, this wasn't really built as office space. So a major renovation would be required, or, some other some other solution to have purpose-built office space would be recommended. I'll just keep rolling here. Turkey Street Warehouse. So this is also was built as a neighborhood school that's currently being used as a maintenance and warehouse facility. So you can see, pictures of what I believe used to be the gym is now like a receiving area, that large photo. And then you see like a typical classroom that's being used for storage, corridors being used for storage. And then there's just generally maintenance and deferred maintenance associated with a building of this age that that we wanted to point out. Active roof leaks, another one of those house fans that I just can't get enough of. The generator system, and then the boiler plant from the 30s, original to the building, is still keeping this place warm. So similar to the district office, the recommendation here would be either be a major renovation or, some other solution to get purpose-built maintenance facility, warehouse facility.
So the wellness center, facility needs we're saying are low at the wellness center. There seems to be, there was investment there when I believe the district purchased the building. There's a ADA lift within it. There was new HVAC within the last 5 to 7 years. So this would be another one that we're recommending to be in maintenance mode, just kind of watching, the years and the systems and how scheduling out kind of that allocation for when things are expected to need repair. I believe the roof project is actively happening. On one of the days we were there, I think there was contractors there. So looking at the roof. And then the former St. Stephen's Rectory right next door. Another one that wasn't intentionally or originally designed for kind of the purpose that it is right now, but it's kind of working. It's a residential construction, so bathrooms aren't ADA, and there's really no kind of going up and down in an elevator. But again, this one doesn't need or require a lot more greens and yellows here.
So real quick, I just want to take a moment to thank the admin for, giving us all the, and Mr. Cordes and his team for getting us into all of these buildings, and, James and I and the rest of the team, we were able to get through a significant amount of square footage in, I don't know, a few weeks, to sort of gather all of this information for you all. So thanks again for all your time. And so I've got a couple more slides, and then I'm going to turn it over to Michelle from Alloy 5. So generally, you see like the greens and the oranges and reds and yellows, and these things aren't they're not subjective, right? There's industry standards on how long each of these systems are expected to last. So that's really like the basis for all this information is, we're getting out on site, and if we see a system, we know it's supposed to last 15 years, but it's in really good condition, maybe we could slide that, right? We can make the decision to defer it to 5 years, 10 years, whatever. But generally, we're basing all this information on, excuse me, on industry standards. One more look at the whole district, right? So there's two charts here. The top chart is, today. You see the different colors, you see the numbers. So the numbers represent the age of the system, right? So you can see each school, there's rows for the schools, there's columns for the different systems. Each of these systems has a different expected life expectancy, right? For example, roofing is, I think we're showing 25 years here. Boilers are 30 years, right? So if it's within 5 years of its life expectancy, it's yellow. If it's within 5 years beyond its life expectancy, it's orange. And if it's 5 years beyond its life expectancy, it's red. So you can see, over time, how that chart moves from green to yellow to orange to red. And 5 years from now, this is a representation of what the district would look like with a do nothing scenario. So again, after I'm sure boring you all to death, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle here to talk a little bit about educational program. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Cody and James. I promise to be a little more brief here. We'll move along through the last bit of this presentation. So as Tim mentioned at the top, we also evaluated the educational program of the building. So it's one thing to go through and review all the infrastructure that Cody and James just did, but it's another thing to evaluate the educational program of those spaces as well. So what we did here was we broke them out into the elementary school, and then on the next slide, we'll evaluate the middle school and high school. And if you recall at the April board meeting, we gave an update on the summary of all of this information. So this is just a bit more of a breakdown. We evaluated the programs that were offered at each school, the size of the spaces, the modernization of the classrooms, and opportunity for flexibility and growth within those spaces, using a very similar color key system that we just did for the report cards that were reviewed. As you can see here for the elementary schools, State Street is kind of the benchmark for the elementary schools, providing the most educational programming, having the program spaces that are most attainable right now, having classrooms that are the most modern right now being the project that has been tackled most recently. And Chester and Dana Street both have some improvements to be made, certainly based on the age of the buildings and based on some of the infrastructure items that the team just reviewed. Third Ave, being a kindergarten center, works well for the purpose that it serves right now. If we were to evaluate that and look at some different scenarios for Third Street, we would probably want to reevaluate the educational program here. This is going to be an ongoing process. What we did to arrive to some of these ratings on top of the reviewing with the team on the condition of these spaces was look at each of their existing programs and then compare it to a target, like a target program that we would recommend if we were to be building a new school, and evaluate the delta between all that information. So that's how we came up with the information we have listed here. This will be an ongoing process with the district and hopefully with some of the other stakeholders and end users to continue to develop that program. Looking at this at the middle school and high school level, very similar process here. There's some slight differences in the programs, and that's just natural based on the curriculum offered at the middle school level and at the high school level. The middle school, though, is in a pretty good spot right now. There's a few minor deficiencies at the gymnasium, wrestling rooms, some of those athletic spaces, as well as the auditorium and stage room that we're in right now. And then at the middle school, or at the high school rather, we are seeing some more deficiencies there that we would like to address, particularly in areas of typical general classrooms, as well as areas like the music, orchestra, band spaces, tech ed and engineering spaces. One space that's serving really well right now is the STEM lab. That was a recent renovation done at the high school. So a lot of care was taken into making sure that space was being planned for modern programming. So between myself and Mike Lang, we'll speak a little bit about possible approaches and next steps. We evaluated three of these possible approaches. This is just a starting off point. We have a cost range on here. It's not necessarily to say that one of these options is associated with a cost range. It's just where we're looking at for the options that are available to us right now. At the capital improvement level and across the board, all the concerns have been discussed to this point, so I'm not going to belabor on that information here. What I want to spend a little bit of time talking about is the approaches that we're looking at. In the first option at capital improvements, we wanted to look at each district facility remaining online with infrastructure improvements determined based on the conditions reported that you just heard from James and Cody. At the second possible approach that we might want to look at includes some district grade realignment. And this approach would utilize district grade realignment to merge facilities and create stronger educational structure and community-centered schools. And the third approach that we're going to explore will utilize the district grade realignment and consolidate to streamline facilities and campuses throughout the district that can include athletics and district support buildings. So looking more holistically at every building that was discussed here today. Some of the solutions listed below will be an ongoing process and a discussion, and then Mike's going to come up now and start to talk a little bit about stakeholder engagement and next steps. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, I apologize. I gave myself one slide short. So when we talked at our last meeting, we had established some goals that we had evaluated throughout this entire process. It's kind of a benchmark. We always want to come back to it. It's a bit of a filtering process. When we go through many different ideas in our head, we want to always root it back into the same few goals that we've established here. So we did run these three possible solutions through the goals that we had listed, and this just gives us a sense of the direction and what opportunities we have with these three approaches. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Good evening.
Evening.
Thanks, Michelle. So we've just heard a lot of information in a short period of time, and it's a lot. And so naturally, I think the question that most people are thinking right now would be, well, what do we do next, and how do we get there? So what I'd like to talk through for the next few minutes is a game plan. And it's a game plan that we've used probably the last 10 to 15 years throughout the state in a lot of districts that are facing very similar situations to Valley West here. And before I kind of walk through each one of these columns and how we get to the end and potentially get to the end of a solution, I want to focus on these green boxes, and the word communicate is in each one of them. And, since being hired by you folks, we have been in constant communication with the administration, the school board, the community through the school board presentations, and we will continue to communicate and make this a completely transparent process from start to finish. I think it's super important, and it's really paramount to the success of any kind of program that the district would consider. So where we are right now in the process is in the stakeholder engagement. We have the technical, we have all, as you heard. What we gave you was a very small sample size of the amount of data that was collected. We have that technical data. We have some stakeholder engagement already. We've had a lot of input from the administration. We've sent, there's been surveys and interviews of all the principals of the schools. So we do have some really good feedback to get a start here. But what we need next is we need more input, more stakeholder engagement from the teachers, from the support staff at each of the schools. And then ultimately we need the community's feedback as well. So if you think about it, we would have technical, we have administration, we would have school board, we would have your consulting team, we would have principals, teachers, community. We have all the stakeholders that are here in the district, in this community, all having input, all having, a completely, like I said, transparent and communicative, collaborative process to then get us to the next piece, which is the solutioning. So you heard the approaches. There's a few approaches we can take here as a district. We need to develop solutions. So you need all that input, all that data, which is what we are gathering, what we have been gathering. You got to mix it up with the financial, right? Because you just heard your financial situation. You heard about your borrowing capacities. You heard about the potential borrowings. There's other revenue sources, what you get from the state, potentially from operational savings. If you're looking at, approach number 2, approach number 3, where you're streamlining your district and potentially consolidating schools, there could be operational savings from not running so many schools, maybe some of those support buildings. It all has to come together and be a fiscally responsible solution. So you might have 5 to 10 solutions that are developed over the next few months, but you might only a few of them are actually fiscally achievable. So those move into the more of the decision process bucket. And then once you get to the decision process bucket, it kind of it kind of starts over. It's an iterative process because it becomes back into it's 2 or 3 that are actually viable, that'll solve problems and that you can stand up and be, again, fiscally responsible and make it work. And then at that point, it has to whittle down to 1. It comes to the school board for approval. If it's so approved, it moves into implementation. That is the game plan. So the immediate next step, right? Each one of those buckets, I'm not going to take, we have a slide for each one of them. I want to take you to one. So that's the immediate next step. The immediate next step, what we'd like to propose and we'd like to continue this process is like I said, is the input from the internal staff, from the teachers, from the support staff at the buildings. We want to gather that. It would be done through some surveys. We have some online survey tools, really simple stuff, completely anonymous. And it could be handled in a few weeks. And then we would like to do something similar for the community. Really, the point of doing this is to, again, prioritizing the facility needs. We talked about education. We need to continue to develop that educational standard and understand the educational situation and needs here at the district. And then again, the facilities, right? What are the issues? And you're going to see a lot of the same things come up. It's just natural. It's gonna should align with what we're talking about here. One last time. So here's your next steps. Again, here's your road. And what I want to do is these 3, number 1, 2, and 3 is the next 3 to 4 months of timeline. Again, continuing the stakeholder engagement, taking these approaches and refining them, mixing it with the funding and all the feedback we get, from the stakeholder engagement and really developing potential options, not just approaches, options. And then, so that's a 3 to 4 month process. 4, 5, and 6, taking those options, whittling it down to the 2 or 3, and ultimately the 1, and then you all, making a decision at that point. That's as long as it needs to happen. That is not, I don't have a timeline for that. That could be as fast or as slow as is needed. This is a giant decision. It's probably the biggest decision in this school district in 50 years. And it's really looking to set this school district up for the next 50 years. So by no means are we trying to rush anything. Like I said, I can tell you that 1, 2, and 3 is probably 3 to 4 months, just to give you a perspective on timeline. And then we have to really kind of see where it lands us in 4, 5, and 6. Wanted to just, because again, a lot of data, and that's the natural question is, well, what do we do now? So this is the ideal situation. Just unpacked it for you.
Wow. That's a lot.
It is.
A lot there.
It is.
Thank you. I've learned a lot, actually.
And I'd like to second what Cody said, because you guys have been awesome to work with, especially the administration and just, I think we were board approved in February and here we are. So we don't do that without your support and without the hard work of the district. So thank you very much.
Does anybody have any questions?
Question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nick. Try it.
So first of all, thank you guys for your presentation. It was very informative. I just had a question. Have you guys ran any numbers on cost savings? If we were, let's just say, for example, the high school, from what I got from this, is in like the worst condition. If we were to completely close the high school, build a new high school, do you have any figures on cost savings for that? Because I know, like you mentioned, raise taxes to come up with this money, which I understand what you're saying. But for example, I hate comparing school districts, but Wilkes-Barre area closed 3 high schools, built a new high school, a bunch of athletic facilities, and they haven't had to raise taxes in 7 years. But I know it's apples and oranges, but I just want to know if you have any figures on if we were to close a building, what that would save for our district.
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's a really good point. That is part of these next steps is to begin to quantify exactly that. Because that I'd mentioned, really you have your debt service, you have your funding from the state, and you have your operational savings from, potentially closing, selling, those kind of figures. So we have, at this point, we have not calculated those, but that will absolutely be part of these next steps because that's going to have to go into the decision-making process. You're going to need to know those numbers for sure, because you're right, then that's exactly what Wilkes-Barre did. And I do want to point out, that school was built in, the bids were in like 2019 and 2020. So, as everybody knows from filling your gas tank up, everything has doubled since then. So unfortunately, fortunately for them, they built at a time when construction costs were probably half of what they are right now. So that played into it. And, obviously state funding hasn't caught up with that either. So it's put districts in a tough spot, not just Valley West, but across the state for sure.
Anyone else?
Yes, well, can we get a paper copy of that because it was hard to see from here?
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll
at least email it to.
We will. Yeah. Absolutely.
I can make paper copies. I have it and I can send out the PDFs.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And there will be, this is again.
Email, Mark, everything. Brian was,
We were looking for it.
Brian was following along. Maybe just Brian got it. I don't know.
We'll provide.
Send it out yesterday.
We'll make sure that we print out copies for all the board members next time too.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Well, I want to thank you. I'd like to commend your team. I learned a lot.
Watching ingest.
Yeah, a lot. A lot of information. Thank you for a great presentation. I'm looking forward to the next one. So what do we do now? That's where, what do we do?
Yeah, we are too. So we appreciate the partnership. It's awesome. Real excited about it.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all.
We got it.
Yeah.
We were looking under.
The other one.
We got the paperwork. We were looking under Jen's agendas she sent out.
Oh, okay.
I guess we felt she was more important.
She is.
The only one that doesn't read my email. Oh, we're all up to date.
You admitted to it though.
Superintendent's comments. Dr.
65 training for email usage.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Safe travels back. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Spartans. I truly cannot believe we're already in the month of May. It feels like just yesterday we were welcoming students and staff back for the start of another school year. And now we're approaching the finish line of what has been an incredibly successful and productive year across the Wyoming Valley West School District. This year has been filled with tremendous growth, progress, and accomplishments in every area of our district. From major security upgrades and safety enhancements to athletic success, academic achievement, student growth, STEAM enhancements, grant securements, community partnerships, and countless student accomplishments, this has been a year our entire Spartan community should be proud of. We have continued to invest in the safety and well-being of our students and staff while also students to excel in all facets of education. The momentum we have created this year is something we will continue to build upon moving forward. Following my remarks this evening, I will also be presenting the district's preliminary budget. I want to stress the word preliminary. Nothing is finalized tonight and nothing officially goes into effect until the final budget vote takes place in June. There is still time to evaluate everything as we move through the process. Fiscal responsibility remains a priority as we continue working to provide the very best opportunities for our students, staff, and community. I also want to highlight a tremendous upcoming event in our community, the 70th anniversary of the Fine Arts Fiesta. For 70 years, the Fine Arts Fiesta has transformed Public Square into the heart of NEPA's creative community. From May 14th through May 17th, Wilkes-Barre's signature celebration of the arts will once again bring together musicians, dancers, theater performers, poets, and crafters for a vibrant four-day festival. I am extremely proud that both our middle school and high school students will be participating and showcasing their incredible talents. Our Wyoming Valley West Middle School performances include Thursday, May 14th, our middle school band will take the stage from 3 to 4 p.m. On Friday, May 15th, our Spartan Singers will be on from 10 a.m. to 10:30. And from Friday, May 15th, our middle school orchestra will be on from 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Our high school performances include our high school small chamber orchestra ensemble on May 14th at 11 a.m. Marching Spartans, May 14th at 4:30 p.m. And our high school concert choir, May 14th at 5:30 p.m. In addition, I also want to recognize two outstanding Spartans for remarkable accomplishments connected to the Fine Arts Fiesta. Blake Fahosky, a sixth grade student at Wyoming Valley West Middle School, placed first out of 44 applicants in the Literacy Arts Poetry Contest. Blake will be showcasing his work at the Fine Arts Fiesta on Sunday, May 17th. He will have his picture featured in the newspaper and will also read his poetry live on stage. In addition, several more of his poems will be displayed in the Poetry Club area throughout the festival. I also want to congratulate Nathan Harvilla, who won the Fine Arts Fiesta poster contest. Nathan's artwork was selected as the official advertisement for the Fiesta and will appear on the banners and t-shirts throughout the event.
Awesome.
What tremendous accomplishments by two very talented Spartans. We're incredibly proud of both of them. I also want to recognize a tremendous initiative that highlights the importance of attendance and student commitment throughout the school year. The Wyoming Valley West School District is proud to announce that Stacy Lubera's Helena is the winner of this year's Senior Attendance Initiative. In an effort to encourage strong student attendance, the district offered an exclusive incentive to the senior class: free DJ services for the winner's graduation party. The criteria for selection were based on the senior with the best attendance record throughout the school year, with GPA serving as the tiebreaker if necessary. We're extremely proud to recognize Stacy for earning this award. Announcing the winner in early May allows for the family time to coordinate and plan the graduation celebration around the availability of the DJ. Congratulations to Stacy, and thank you to all the seniors for your commitment to attendance this year. I also want to extend a sincere thank you to Donnie Evans Entertainment for generously sponsoring this reward and supporting our seniors and the importance of consistent school attendance. I also want to take a moment to recognize what an incredible prom we had this past Friday. The event was outstanding, and I want to sincerely thank all our administrators, teachers, advisors, and staff members who spent countless hours planning and organizing every detail to ensure our students had a memorable and safe evening. Most importantly, our students represented Wyoming Valley West with class, respect, and pride. They truly made us proud. I also want to recognize all our students who recently completed state testing. Our students worked extremely hard, and I cannot be more proud of their effort. Determination and focus they demonstrated throughout the testing process. Their commitment and perseverance continue to make our Spartan community proud every single day. As we head into the final weeks of school, I encourage all family and community members to continue checking our school and district calendars frequently. The end of the year is always an exciting and busy time filled with concerts, award ceremonies, athletic events, celebrations, graduations, and many other special activities throughout the district. There's a great deal happening across Wyoming Valley West, and we want everyone to stay informed and involved. As we continue moving forward, our district will continue to pave the way in education. We will lead, not follow, and we will continue setting the standard high for what our students, staff, and community deserve. Our staff and students are truly the best, and together we will continue showing unity, pride, and commitment to maximizing success in all facets of education. We are and will continue to be a destination district. And as always, go Spartans.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you very much. Statements from interested citizens.
Do you want me to do the budget?
Oh, yeah, if you want to go through it.
Yeah, I'll go through it quick. All right. So I'm going to go through the proposed, Anthony, you'll click for me? Okay. I'm going to go through the proposed budget real quick. I'm pinch hitting here for Mr. Kucherik, who couldn't be here. So I'll make this quick. The first slide I have is just the budgetary timeline that's mandated by the state of Pennsylvania, and you can see the dates. We're adopting a proposed final budget today. We're discussing key highlights. Our deadline for the proposed budget adoption is the end of May. And then our hope is the board approve our final budget on the 10th, and that is due the 30th of June annually. I'll give you the 40,000 foot view here. We have a proposed surplus in our budget of almost $1 million. So we're allowed to raise taxes 5.1%, which doesn't even equate to a full mill. It's about 94% of a mill. Right now, Mr. Kachurik estimated that a full 100% collection of a mill going into next year's 1.9 million roughly. And we have a collection rate in the past of about 90%. So if we ever went to a full mill, you're looking at around 1.7 million. So a mill is $1 for every $1,000 of assessed value. So the approximately, it's a $99 increase to the median household in Wyoming Valley West. So it'd be $99 extra a year. So some of the things I'm highlighting here are expenses versus revenue. You'll see our expenses are about 109 million and our revenue is about 110. I put some things there because these are really fixed. There's nothing we can do with this. There's no wiggle room, right? So our wages make up about 36% of our budget, which is roughly almost $40 million. Our fringe benefits is about 26%, which is roughly $29 million. You saw our debt service is about 2.7%. And transportation can fluctuate. You know what gas and diesel is right now, but right now we're looking at about 4 million in transportation. So these are costs really that are going to be there. They're fixed. It fluctuates a little bit, but there's not too much we can do, but we have to account for it. So our fund balance, our surplus again is roughly $1 million. Our projected beginning 26-27 total fund balance, both assigned and assigned, is roughly 19 million. We're a year behind where our reporting. So our actual we're expecting is about 26 to 27 million. Good, Anthony. So significant changes in 26-27. You guys just sat through these presentations. We know we need capital upgrades and there's capital projects ongoing and there's planned upgrades. We have to. It's our job to put our students and our community in the best educational facilities to maximize their success. Medical insurance is doing nothing but increasing at about a 12% rate. Our medical packages are in excess of $40,000 expected next year. We have salary increases. We have PSER contribution increases. Our transportation keeps increasing. And at the same time, this why we see all these increases in inflation. We're certainly trying to keep an appropriate fund balance for future infrastructure improvement and build. So these are our knowns. We know we need large capital improvements, and they will likely be funded through our capital fund or our current fund balance. Additional improvements we know may still be necessary due to the age of our facilities if there's not new infrastructure. We have multiple contracts right now being settled, like our teacher's contract, hopefully. We have rising special ed costs and needs compared to minimal special ed funding. If you look at the rise in special ed costs compared to what they add in the SEF, you have two formulas in the state of Pennsylvania. You have your BEF, which is your basic education funding, and you have your SEF, which is your special education funding. They're not keeping up with the rise in cost. So the contribution from the state was minimal compared to what we now own. Our brick and mortar, for example, our cyber charters and our brick and mortar, I know you've heard me talk about this in the past. I advocate and I urge our community to reach out to legislators for change. Because right now, when a student leaves, and it's our taxpayer who pays this, when a student leaves and goes to a brick and mortar charter cost, if it's a regular education student, it's $10,194 it costs the districts of taxpayer money. If they go in their special ed, it's almost $32,000 of taxpayer money to that brick and mortar that charter school. If it's a cyber charter cost and it's reg ed, it's $9,000 of taxpayer money. And if it's special ed, it's almost $18,000. That money is paid by the taxpayer. So I want everybody to understand that. And it goes directly to these charter schools. And there's nothing we can do about it. So charter reform is needed so big by public schools. Unknowns. We're hoping that last year we had a budget that was passed extremely late to the point that we were sitting up here not too long ago talking about we don't know how much longer we can continue to pay bills without funding from the state. We're hoping that's not the case again this year. And from what I'm hearing in Harrisburg, there should be a budget passed hopefully in July. But we still don't know the status of our federal and state revenue subsidies. Unknown. Additional positions that can be eliminated through attrition. I can promise you this, every time, whether it's support staff, teachers, admin, we look, is that position truly still needed or not? The problem is majority, if not all our positions, majority of them are. We're not running classes of 1 or 2 kids or 3 kids. We're running classes at the right sizes. So I don't know for attrition, how much that would generate in regard to inflow to the district. Everybody knows inflation's at an all-time high right now, and that's seriously, significantly impacting our costs internally in district. And again, we know we need future capital needs. What they are, there's still some unknowns there. That's why we're running this feasibility study. So our next steps, examine the remaining percent of the budget that can potentially be reduced without impacting student programming. And I'll stress, without impacting student programming. But about 80% roughly, give or take, there's nothing we can do with. So out of $100 million budget, think about that. $80+ million, there's nothing we can do with that. That's a fixed. We'll continue to review ways to reduce staffing costs through attrition if possible. And the next thing is we'll review the key highlights during the board meeting on June 10th to pass the final budget in the hope to pass the preliminary budget tonight. Thank you.
Dr. Stefan, very well done.
Okay, all right.
Statements from interested citizens, Stevie Martin.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am here to formally raise serious concerns
Excuse
about.
me.
Yeah.
Would you pull that mic down just a little bit? There you go.
Better?
Better.
Okay. I'm here to formally raise serious concerns about the softball program, mostly the conduct of the coaching staff and the impact it is having on student athletes. Despite prior complaints, there has been no clear communication regarding any corrective action. Meanwhile, the environment for these players continues to decline. There is lack of clear, consistently enforced policies. No written attendance policy has been provided, yet players are required to produce doctor notes for illness. When I explained my daughter had a medical condition that can cause unexpected absences, I was met with a dismissive response instead of support. Team rules, including dress code, are also enforced inconsistently, with some players being singled out and embarrassed in front of teammates. There are also serious concerns regarding inappropriate conduct. Players have been required to disclose private medical information to a male coach. Private conversations have been shared publicly, and players have been demeaned in front of others. Just recently, there was a practice where it was reported the coach was screaming aggressively at players and even threw a player's bat in frustration. 2 players left practice in tears, and one became so overwhelmed she was hyperventilating. This is an emotional, unsafe environment for students. There's a pattern of favoritism and inconsistent discipline that has created division within the team. Players have been punished for work conflicts despite adjusting their schedules, while others are treated differently for similar behaviors. Since concerns were raised, there has been fear of retaliation. Players who did not attend a game were removed from the team, and communication between players was discouraged. Additionally, while security was provided for the coach, there was no visible measures taken to support or protect the players who raised concerns. This impact is clear. The team has dropped from over 20 players to 11. Players are experiencing anxiety, emotional distress, and a loss of enjoyment in a program that should be supportive and developmental. I am asking for immediate and meaningful action because the safety, well-being, and trust of these student athletes depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we appreciate your concerns and we all heard them. There's an employee situation going on. Our HR has an investigation going, so we really can't comment at this
Right.
time.
Just to at least acknowledge that something is being done.
But we appreciate you taking the time and
Yeah.
coming here to address us.
Thank you.
I have a motion to approve the minutes from our regular meeting, April 8th, 2026. Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under general recommended action items 1 through 63. May I have a motion, please? Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second on the question. Does anybody have any questions on these? Again, Mark, thank you for working on that and Appreciate it. It's a lot there. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Damascus,
Yes.
Mr. Bellio,
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson,
Yes.
Ms. Levesque,
Yes.
Mr. Perfetto,
Yes.
Mr. Kubuski,
Yes.
Mrs. Cassatt,
Yes.
Mr. Kamis.
Yes. Staff recommended action items, items 1 through 23. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second on the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Damascus,
Yes.
Mr. Bellio,
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson,
Yes.
Ms. Levesque,
Yes.
Mr. Perfetto,
Yes.
Mr. Kubuski,
Yes.
Mrs. Cassatt,
Yes.
Mr. Kamis.
Yes. All right, moving on. Finance recommended action items, bills for payment, finance manager's report and the treasurer's report. May I have a motion, please?
Motion. Second.
A motion and a second. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Damascus,
Yes.
Mr. Bellio,
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson,
Yes.
Ms. Levesque,
Yes.
Mr. Perfetto,
Yes.
Mr. Kubuski,
Yes.
Mrs. Cassatt,
Yes.
Mr. Kamis.
Yes. Okay, under new business, does anybody have anything this evening?
Mr. Kamis, I'd like to comment. I don't know if it's not really under new business, but there was a lot to digest tonight with what was proposed, the new budget. And I hate to say it, but it kind of looks like we're going to be leaning to have to make some hard decisions of whether we're going to need to raise taxes or not. Nobody wants to talk about that. We have a lot of buildings that need work, possibly build some new buildings. I think people have to be prepared to make some tough decisions and think about, the future and the finance of the district and be prepared for some of that.
I agree, Mark. We definitely have to dig deep in our, there's a lot there, real lot.
That's all.
Anyone else? All right, our next scheduled meetings will be, our June work session will be Wednesday, June 3rd here at 7 PM. And our regular monthly meeting will be June 10th at 7 PM. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion.
Second.